You're watching Reality Check. The Prime Minister today had to step in to help tackle India's looming power crisis, triggered, it appears, by a shortage of coal, holding a meeting in the Prime Minister's office of top officials from all the ministries involved with the current situation. Even just yesterday, 116 of India's 135 coal-based power plants had enough stock just to last for only 6 days or less. The details of what transpired in the Prime Minister's meeting are not clear, but the coal minister said all shortages would be resolved. The second time he's had to make that assurance in the past 72 hours.
I am assuring you, the entire country also. Yesterday we have supplied around 1.95 million tons of coal. All put together, 1.95 million ton we have supplied. I think in the history of Indian coal or coal industry, this is the ever highest supply we have made.
But is the problem, as the government has been saying, because of a demand-supply mismatch between higher power consumption and lower coal production? Basically, the argument is that a surge in power usage as lockdowns have lifted, coupled with a coal shortage as a result of the flooding of coal mines because of excess rainfall, has created this crunch. The data, though, and the facts suggest a more complex explanation. Despite higher coal production has actually gone up. Why is there a shortage? The government, as I said, claims there's a shortage because of higher power consumption. But the increase in coal production is actually higher than the increase in coal consumption. So then where's the shortage? Experts say this coal crunch could be because power firms may have reduced costly imported coal, and this drop in imports may have increased demand for domestic coal, which may have created this shortage. And this is actually now what the numbers say. Government coal consumption is up by 18 or 18%. That's what they've been saying, and that's why they say there's this problem. But coal production is also up by 27%. This is August, September of 2019 versus 2021. Coal production has gone up from 2019 to 65 million tons to 83 million tons in 2021 for this 2-month period, which is almost a 30% jump according to government data. And while Coal India, which is India's biggest coal producer, state-run, may be seeing an uptick of production this year, many experts say that this crisis was in the making because Coal India, which, as I said, is the biggest producer of domestic coal, has actually been slowing down for a while. Coal India has actually been slowing down for a while. Let's look at those numbers. Now, the slowdown means that when imports drop, Coal India struggles to pick up the extra load. Coal India's production has stagnated since 2019-20, and 2 Coal India subsidiaries don't have a designated chairman cum managing director. Let's look at the numbers for Coal India. Look at what is happening from 2014, where it's doing about 494 million tons, slowly going up. But look at 2018-19 onwards. It seems to be stuck at around 600 million tons, only now starting to pick up. But that stagnation may also be behind this current crunch. Let me start off by first going across to Anil Swarup. He's been former Secretary Coal to Government of India. Mr. Swarup, thank you so much for joining us. You're joining us on the phone line. Just tell us, how is your perspective on this? Is it as simple as saying, oh, because we had rains and that flooded the coal mines and we also had higher consumption, there's a shortage? Or is there more to it, as these numbers seem to suggest? Mr. Swarup, can you hear me? Srinivasan Jain here from the studio.
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. Let me just ask that question again. Do you believe that there is more to this current crunch than just simply a demand-supply mismatch? Because the numbers seem to suggest that there may be other underlying factors, including questions over Coal India.
You know, I've been watching what you were saying. It's very unfortunate that we are not looking at the problem in its entirety. Okay. We are looking at a short term. We are arguing that there is a shortage or not shortage. That's not the issue. Let us appreciate the fact that India does have a shortage of coal. It may or may not be a crisis, that's a different matter. And then look at what are the causes of these shortages. In 2014-16, we faced an exactly similar crisis where a large number of power plants were critical in nature because coal supply wasn't there. And we sorted it out because we looked at the cause of the problem and found a solution. Now, 2016 was a situation where we had coal sufficient enough for all power plants. There was not a single power plant which was critical. And we were toying with the idea of exporting to Bangladesh. Now, what went wrong? Why has coal production in Coal India stagnated to around 600 million tons for the past 3 years? This should be a wake-up call for everyone, and hence this analysis is very, very important. What went wrong between 2017 and 2021? In 2017, I think we became complacent. The chairman, Coal India, completed his tenure, Mr. Sudhir Bhattacharya, and no chairman CMD was appointed for 1 year. Now, you can't have that in Coal India, and all the momentum that was built has slowed down. Ironically, even today, number of subsidiaries do not have CMDs, which is very unfortunate. So there was this human resource related issue. The second was that we had worked out a detailed plan of opening up new mines, expansion of existing mines, and the reserves that Coal India had, it at around 35,000 crores, were supposed to be used for that expansion plan. As luck would have it, as I gather now, most of this money was taken away as dividend and not much was invested for opening new mines. This is cause number 2. Cause number 3 was, very surprisingly, the mine managers were engaged in Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Now, I am all for Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, but I had resisted that mine managers should be working on mines. They should plan for the future. And almost a year was lost in these mine managers. Actually, instead of digging mines, they were digging shitholes. The fourth reason was that Coal India, instead of investing in new mines, was forced to invest in fertilizer plants. And finally, all the problem between 2014-16 was sorted out by engaging with the states. We must understand this very clearly, that mining doesn't happen overnight. Most of the action is in the states, and as luck would have it, all the coal that exists today is in opposition-ruled states. The problem today is the so-called ongoing war between center and the state. In 2014-16, I didn't convene a single meeting in Delhi. Every meeting was held in state headquarters, sat down with state-level officials, even with collectors to see how land could be acquired, how forest clearance could be got. Now, we may say, I'm sure that this will tide over the present-day crisis, because I think coal supply is increased. But this should be a wake-up call. We should not again go to sleep again and have a serious problem. The final point that I'd like to make is that it is very unfortunate that it is being made into center versus state. I think both are equally responsible for the crisis today. Let me explain this to you.
Okay.
Number one, of course, what happened to Coal India. Number two, very importantly, I don't know whether you're aware that DISCOMs owe more than 1 lakh crore of rupees to generating companies who generate power. And generating companies owe 20,000 crores to Coal India. Now, if this money doesn't flow, even if Coal India has coal, why will they supply coal? Number two, the land acquisition and forest clearance primary job is done at the state level. So it is wrong to say that the center is solely responsible or state is solely responsible. I think the best would be for the center and state to, finish this war off, sit across a table, work out a detailed plan and find solution. It was done during 2014-16. It can be done now.
Right. Wow. So much there that you've said to unpack, but pretty startling pointers that you made right at the outset, where you talked about the fact that Coal India has been slipping, which you said is for a number of reasons, some of which at least we cited, which includes this whole governance vacuum. They didn't appoint full-time people. You said that some of the money that should have been used to invest was actually taken away by the government as dividend. But you also made, if I may say so, quite a startling claim, Mr. Swaroop. You said that Coal India's managers were taken to work on Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. And this is something that was was this kind of informally done, or was this formal orders?
No, it was formally done. In fact, in my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, there is a chapter called Shit Happens. And this is more than a year ago that I had warned that what was done then is going to create a problem. I distinctly remember a meeting held in the Cabinet Secretariat. And I told the Cabinet Secretary that the tagline for Coal India should be changed. It should be changed from present tagline to we set up toilets, we also produce coal. The reason was very simple. I was flabbergasted. Now, I had no problem in giving CSR fund from Coal India for setting up toilets. But these mine managers was deputed to locate the schools and supervise the construction of toilets. Imagine. And because at that point in time, I don't blame the cabinet secretary or other people at that. The situation was so comfortable. They ridiculed me and they said, you have so much coal that there are no takers. Why are you worried? I said, sir, I'm looking 5 years down the line. Because what mine managers do today to plan those mines, they will fructify after 5 years. And you mark my words, we will face another crisis. I've said that.
Good Lord.
And that is what I've quoted in my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant. It's very unfortunate. As I said, this should be a wake-up call today for all of us. We'll tide over this crisis. But the real problem is not merely with coal. The larger issue is with the power sector. The DISCOMs are collapsing. Uday failed. And we don't accept that fact. We have to have a new Uday. If the DISCOMs don't revive, mark my words, even if you have sufficient coal in India, where are you going to pay? How are you going to pay for that coal? Because DISCOMs will not be in a position to pay for power.
Right.
And GENCOs will not be in a position to pay coal. The writing is on the wall.
Okay. Just one last point though, because one of the things you just mentioned was the fact that there's also become this gridlock, somewhat of a political gridlock between the center and opposition states, which, as you said, most of the coal-bearing states happen to be opposition states. In your time, and I remember actually coming and covering this when you were there were mechanisms like there was the project monitoring group in the PMO cabinet secretariat had these mechanisms where some of these kind of disputes or issues were untangled. What in your view, what is happening to all of that right now?
Unfortunately, I had set up the coal project monitoring group, which helped to resolve a number of issues. Unfortunately, after some time, they are nowhere. I don't hear about them. I have already suggested in an article that we should revive that coal project monitoring group, an interministerial group. Unless we solve the problems of both Coal India and private sector. Mind you, 20% coal comes from the private sector. A number of mines have been allocated. Unless you give them clearance, fast-track clearance, we will run into a problem again. Today you have a crisis, you will have a greater crisis a year down the line. So it's not a question of crisis today, as I said. We'll be able to find solution to the current crisis. There's no point in fighting over it. The question is whether we are thinking long term. I thought long term 5 years ago. I hope someone thinks long term just now.
Okay. Well, at least you put your point across loud and clear, as you always do, Anil Swarup. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's go to panel. We have a face-off. Pawan Khera, spokesperson Congress, is with us. PKD Nambiar, political analyst, supports the BJP. Let me just go across to you, PKD Nambiar. You heard very blunt speaking there. This is from, this is not opposition. This is not, you say media. This is Anil Swarup, highly regarded former Secretary Coal, Government of India. And look at some of the things they're saying, that this has got to do with mismanagement. The fact that you let Coal India run without proper management, you diverted funds away from it. You allowed its managers to, I don't want to use the term, but basically digging, holes for Swachh Bharat.
So, Srinivasan, I would not comment on what the former Secretary Coal has said, because I'm sure that he would be having his own data to said whatever he said. One thing I must tell you, that the so-called crisis word which is being used from the last 2 days, maybe begin from the Delhi Chief Minister. I don't know whether these kind of the word crisis even exists with regard to the power problem. It is definitely, there may be a shortage. There may be a shortage which maybe exists right now, but that could be considered, that changing that from a shortage to a crisis, I think we may be overlooking it. If you really remember, during the COVID time, the Prime Minister has announced that there should be a power, should be switched off by everybody.
Mr. Nambiar, let us now not quibble over semantics. Is it a crisis? Is it a shortage? The fact is that all the data, this is data supplied by the government, is telling you that a bulk of power plants in this country have anywhere between 4 to 8 days of stock left. Some of them have hit zero. That's why the Prime Minister himself had to jump in. Is it not somewhere along the line of fact that this is not simply weather gods, excess rainfall and all that? There has been mismanagement.
May I make my statement, Srinivasan? I would say that there may be a shortage. That is the reason we elect a government. If there is a crisis, or even if it is a shortage, it's the job of the government to ensure that the citizens of this country gets uninterrupted power. So there is no question that if the government is not able to act, and if we all are under the dark, definitely we all have to criticize.
Okay.
If there is a shortage, let the government take that. And government today clearly and clarifying to all of us, saying that there is no problem, that we will not be having
government
any
keeps
issue
saying,
at all. I would
okay. Let's get Pawan Khera to respond. Okay, Pawan Khera, it's not a crisis, it's a shortage, and the shortage is getting resolved.
Oh, perhaps this is another masterstroke by the Prime Minister, Mr. Masterstroke. Tell me, 2016, Vasu, loudly tom-tom coal reform, so coal sector reforms. Piyush Goyal went around town beating his own trumpet that, look, here are the reforms. We've undone the mess created by UPA. What happened to those reforms? 80 mines, ready-to-mine blocks were auctioned. What happened to those 80 ready-to-mine blocks? Why haven't they been started? Why did we allow the private players who were sitting on those blocks, which they bought in the auction, to continue importing coal? Because the imported coal was cheaper then. You can't allow the private sector to dictate terms, to dictate market, to take advantage of shortages when there are shortages domestically. Now they are taking advantage. Now, when they sell to the NTPC, the same private players will overcharge. Mind you, my word, they've already invoked force majeure. So, here is another example of the Prime Minister coming to very loyally standing with his crony friends. You give them captive blocks, you allow them to sit on those blocks, you allow them to continue importing coal because the imported prices were low. Now that the prices have gone up back high, you allow them to invoke force majeure. What's happening?
Okay, let me...
This, in short, is the crisis.
The
crisis is to help the friends of the Prime Minister.
Okay, that's a serious allegation. Let PKD Nambiar respond. PKD Nambiar, the fact is, whether this is to do with cronyism or not, the fact is that this is what we are bringing out in our graphics. That coal shortage is not the issue. The issue is that because imported coal has become expensive, there's been a drop of imported coal by private players. Domestic coal supplier is not able to make up the gap. That's created the crunch. And so it's really the private players who might be behind this. That's something the government is not coming out and acknowledging.
Let me tell you that the crisis is, once again, I wanted to tell you there is no crisis as on today. I wanted to believe my government. If my minister is coming and saying there is no crisis, let me believe that.
Okay, let's move beyond whether it's a crisis or not. Coming on the point.
I am just talking about only one thing, that this government's policy from the very beginning, if you really recall, that this government has taken a decision. We cannot be only remain to one source of energy, that is the thermal power. That cannot be the way we as a country should look forward. From just a 2.6 gigawatt capacity in 7 years ago, today we are generating the renewable energy of 42 gigawatt. I think the move and we are today the third largest country in the world when it comes to the renewable energy. I think the whole world needs to change, and so are we, and we are leading from the front with regard to the power, the source of power generation, from moving from just the thermal and the hydro to the renewable energy, which is solar and wind. You know that the kind of progress we have made. I think it's that there may be challenges. Globally, there are challenges. China is going through. Some of the African countries are under dark from the last couple of months. There is a challenge globally where people are facing. But fortunately, we must be very happy that today we are in a situation wherein we have ample coal reserve. We have a government which is in action.
No, one second,
will be able to
Mr. Nambiar, you have not answered.
Supply of coal.
No, one second, Mr. Nambiar, you didn't answer the fundamental question. Is the allegation being made here is that this was done because the real issue is that because of the high price of imported coal, that is what has created the issue. Let me actually just play for both of you a clip. I earlier spoke to Venu Prasad. Mr. Venu Prasad is the chairman and MD of Punjab State Power Corporation Limited. That's one of the states Punjab has been quite badly hit by all this. And I asked him, what exactly is the reason that he thinks there's been a shortage of coal and what is causing this power crisis? Let's listen to what he had to say. Mr. Venu Prasad.
Because I'm told because of heavy rainfall in especially in Bihar Jharkhand and other, from where we are getting coals, SCCL area, CCL area, NCL area. So because of water, heavy rains, I think they have to, dewatering is also required in the mines. It took some time. So there was a disruption in supply. Otherwise, every time we are getting coal, it should not be a problem, maybe because of this rainfall. And second main problem is the international coal prices also. Previously, it was about $50 per metric ton. Today, it is $150 per metric ton. So we were getting about 500 megawatts from Tata Power, CGPL, Mudra. So most of the international coal-based plants, they are not operating. So as a result, there is overall shortage of power in the market. So the most worrying part is about the prices on power exchange. Normally we get it at around 5 rupees, 6 rupees, but this year because of shortage of power in various states, the rates even touched to 20 rupees. Yesterday we purchased huge power at 13 rupees, 14 rupees per unit.
Let me just take that back to you, Mr. Nambiar. This is the issue that is being brought up. Power prices have gone up. States are having to pay higher rate. Who benefits? Therefore, the allegation being made of cronyism.
No, it's very clearly that the gentleman has very clearly said only one thing, that it is only a shortage, it is not a crisis. One. Second, and because of the weather, whatever he said, if at all, if I go by him, it is because of the weather.
Now, so why don't you understand? I think the shortage is the crisis.
Okay, come to the point. Come to the Mr. Nambiar.
Why are you calling me on a show if you don't even let me speak one sentence completely, and you just jump and if you wanted to prove that there is a crisis, this country is going to be blackout tomorrow, let's decide that, Srinivasan, let's you decide.
Mr. Nambiar, firstly, I didn't interject. That was Pawan Khera's interjection. Secondly, you're not answering the question on the fact that private players.
Srinivasan, but before that you will say something else. What will I do? I also have got some kind of a document. I have been associated with the power sector for several years, have some kind of a knowledge, but you are just decided that there is...
Okay, sir, answer the question. I have to move on.
And we are going to have
okay, sir, answer. Yes.
No, only what all I am saying is that India as a country, it's a business. The supply versus, if you are getting a cheaper coal from abroad, why would you use a coal which is our national reserve? No country will use it, whether it is a petroleum product, any of the natural reserves. Every country wanted to keep it safe. And today we have the national reserves. We will be able to use it the way we want it.
Mr. Nambiar, one has given you, with all due respect, enough time. The issue is you don't answer the question. It's not just about repeating talking points. Anyway, last point, Pawan Khera, we're running out of time. Look, Pawan Khera, the fact is, allegations of cronyism, etc., it can be made in the space of a political TV debate. It's hard to prove, is it not? I mean, you can allege it, but it's more inference. In a more concrete level, though, Pawan Khera, would you concede that the shortage overall, the acute shortage that it was there a few days ago, it started to come down? Some of your own state governments, including, by the way, the gentleman in Punjab, is telling us things are getting better.
No, I'm sure things should get better. I mean, we all owe it to the nation to ensure that things get better. But the point, Vasu, is why do we reach a point where we start talking whether a crisis shortage is the damn crisis? What was the crisis? The crisis was shortage. And why did we reach this stage? Why didn't we have the foresight enough to plan that after lockdown is lifted, there will be economic activity, the demand will go up. After the rains, mines get flooded always. ऐसा नहीं है ना, पहली बार बरसात हुई है पिछले 70 साल में, बरसात भी हर साल होती है. तो ये क्या मतलब है कि जब मोदी जी आए तो क्राइसिस हो ही नहीं सकता. People didn't die of lack of oxygen. They blocked their noses and died just to defame Modi. I mean, what kind of an argument is this? Let's face the crisis, that there is a crisis, first of all. This is a reality. Now, we will continue doing the post-mortem. How did we reach this point? Let's solve the problem. And then we'll definitely hold this government accountable to why did we reach this point, who gained, who profited, is there cronyism? All these debates must continue.
All right. The debate must continue. We're out of time.
Last point, Srinivasan. During the COVID time too, there was armchair experts who were coming and saying that there will be...
Yes, 10 seconds.
Yeah, during the COVID time,
So how
if you
can you
recall,
give him
there
10
was
seconds
multiple
on COVID?
discussion on an
No
armchair.
one died,
Experts
right?
were coming and
No
saying
one
died.
all our grids
What are
are
you
going
trying
to
to
be
say?
failed,
No one
but
died in
nothing
COVID.
happened.
No,
Nothing
Mr. Nambiar, we
happened.
cannot
What
get
are you
into
trying to
COVID
say?
now.
Nobody died in
This is
COVID.
on
There
coal.
was no crisis.
No, I'm
How
only
can you go
saying
from
that
coal to
armchair
COVID?
experts do not have any base.
All right,
Are you
okay,
trying to
okay.
say COVID
Okay. We have to, I'm sorry, we'll have to
Everybody
wrap.
lost his or her family.
We'll have to wrap. We're out of time. But thank you both so much for joining me. And thank you all so much for watching. That's all the time we have. Good night.